What's up, welcome to Creation Films, and today it is Friday, January the 19th, 2024. Wow, where has the time gone? And it's another lovely day, perfect day for a live stream, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We're streaming in a lower resolution, temporarily, just to find out if my audio stays in sync. Y'all got to let me know. If my audio stays in sync, well, then, you know, it'll be all kinds of fun, and if it doesn't go in sync, then I'll switch it back to 720. Hey, everybody out there, we got Raw Productions. Hell yeah. Hello, Raw. How are you? Yeah. King, we got you out there. Hello. Phil says greetings from my desk here in sunny California. That's right. Hello, Phil. How are you, Phil? You doing well? Well, Bill Howard. Hello, Bill. Hola. Bill was on a cool live stream the other night talking about his documentaries, The Encounters, that is up on Tubi. It was a fun one. We got Sully out there. We got Michael Sutton out there. Hello, Michael. How are you? We got audio is choppy. Interesting. So it's worse. Ha, let me switch it. Let me switch it. Tweet. Tweet, tweet. Okay, how about now? Is that any better? Audio, is that any better at all? Let me know if that's any better, because I can make another change. Let's see if that is any better. It's funny, because going worse, no, it's not any better. Interesting. All right, then let's go here. And let me go here. And that was not it. I literally, every single time, man, I try to make this stuff work. Trying to get it where it's not crappy. And it's, you know, always crappy. All right, so let's try that. Yeah, that. And then we'll do this. Okay, boo, 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 boo. How's that? Is that any better? Any better at all? Sounds crackly, getting better. I will stop touching anything right now, and I will wait for anything. Better. Okay. That was weird. Okay, I'm clear. Am I in sync, though? 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. That was interesting. I was not expecting. Where's 32-bit float when you need it? Yes, in sync. Okay, well, whatever. Fine. The world, according to just, you know, whatever it wants to be. Phil is out there. Phil, if you want to join in the live stream, I'm more than happy to send you a little linky if you want to join in. It's all up to you. We were going to have a guest today, but at the last minute, the guest had to cancel for bigger and more important things. I see where I rate in the world. But I have been assured that next week, our special guest will arrive and link me up, bud. Alrighty. I shall link you up as soon as invite. I mean, one of us has got to at least have good copy, or good audio. Let me get over here. Boop, boop, boop. Interesting. Looking for Mr. Phil. 1 second. We're going to link up Mr. Phil here. And then I will have to figure out how I'm going to hear Mr. Phil. I know how I'm going to hear him. I got ways. So we'll take this here. And we'll do this. We're going to do this. Okay, so back to the wonderful, wild, wacky world of everything audio. Sync drifting a bit. Okay, that sounds familiar. Let's see. I'm going to switch it to 480 real quick. Okay, so now how's the sync? the sync better? And did the audio go crappy, or is the everything okay, just lower resolution? Inquiring minds want to know. One day everything will work. I know it'll happen. I just know it. I just know it will. Let's see. There we go. There we go. So we'll just do that. I'll put in my... Nope, I don't want noise canceling. Waiting on sound, there's no sound. Audio is ahead by half a second or so for me. Audio sync is... All right, fine. We're going back to the old standby of there. That's what you get with me. If and when Phil joins, he'll be in sync, and I won't be. So y'all don't want to hear me anyway. But yeah, the special guest will be here next Friday, and I was told it'll be worth it. Trust me. So I will trust that. Carlos says, now you're in sync. But for how long? Phil, you ready? Thumbs up. Whenever you're ready, give me the thumbs up on the screen so I can see it. He's not ready yet. Special guest. That'll be next week. Next week we'll have a special guest. They cancel at the last minute. Cognition, hello. I see Mr. Holland, but he has not given me the thumbs up on screen, so I can't bring him up. So I have. Oh, there we go. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Phil Holland. Hey, Phil.
What's up? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay, man. It's been a roaring start to the year.
Right. Mine has been
How
a
about
complete and total brick wall of nothing.
Ooh, okay.
Let's see. Sutton says
Getting the
EVF.
volume up and everything. This is sounding good.
You got volume going? You're good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right.
It's just a little low on my side, but I have like a complicated setup. What's up, Carlos?
I have to say anyway.
Happy belated birthday, Michael. I wished you it on the internet, but I can actually say it to you in this virtual space.
Dude, what's weird is I have an echo on you, but it's stereo. So if I just take out one earplug, I bet it'll be just fine.
Really?
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't have an echo now. Yeah, let's just chalk it up to my side because God knows everything else is on my side.
Yeah.
Sutton says thank you.
I'm really proud of what Sutton's doing with Mutiny. A lot of their newer stuff looks amazing too.
And they're cranking it out too.
They're expanding.
They're cranking out stuff left and right, and I love the colors. I love the colors. I like that they're just doing something special every now and then. They're just like, oh, we'll just mess around a little bit here.
Yeah. Phil in his house.
Let's see. Wow, Mr. Phil Holland, I discovered you through Scott last week. Oh, I loved your cakes review despite the failings of the R5C.
Oh, when the camera died on that. Yeah.
Did you do it on Instagram?
I'm actually on the R5C right now. And I have the Global Dynamics United 50 on there because my normal lens I have on this camera I was using recently.
I found the fix for the Canons that blink on and off all the time. You have to go over there and reset it all the time.
Oh, I fixed it ages ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah, wow. No one had an answer, and I went and found it myself. The pain in the butt. I don't know why Canon can't fix that.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of funny. My Komodo X got back to me, about a week ago. It was out on a rental for almost 3 months, which was crazy. Nice. I've barely had that camera since it's come out, enough to kind of get dirty with it. And now that it's back, I'm thinking about getting the END-PL for it. I have it on my 2 Raptors, but I'm kind of looking at what I do with that kit. Yeah.
Did you see the that Komodo kit that Bill from Voice and Video was selling? I don't know if it's
No,
sold
I did
yet.
not.
Dude, it's kind of killer. It's an OG Komodo with
Hmm.
the red E&D, a couple of other things for like $7,000. It's insanity. That is, it was
Wow.
yeah, it's like
Well, I mean,
I think he
half
said
that
it's
price is
12,000
the
retail.
E&D. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
the E&D is like 40 something or 40. There was something else on it too. He had a bunch of things on it.
Yeah.
I mean that's a heck of a deal. Anybody's looking for that. I was going to
Nice.
hit him up to say, hey, how much just for the E&D? But then I remembered I don't have any money.
Yeah. I'm in pre-pro right now for one big shoot, but there's a couple of smaller shoots throughout the year that will likely happen if I can schedule them in. But it's been interesting. I see the world spinning again after the strikes. I really don't see like the bulk of production work starting until February or March, though. A lot of people got a fast start, but like not the rest of the industry.
Yeah, I didn't see a massive ramp up hardly at all. I saw a couple people get some work, but nothing that made me feel like things were happening.
Yeah. I think what happened is, I mean, I was kind of saying it leading up to it the months in advance, but by figuring things out in October and kind of into November, you're getting into that holiday season and you're missing those windows where people can still meet and figure out financials. So now all that stuff basically moved to the second week of January. So like pretty much right now, people are figuring out how to strategize. And I've seen streaming services kind of come up with new directions with content, quite drastic changes. But yeah, I'm keeping my nose, to the pavement just to see what's going on because I kind of track everything in the industry, and I'm kind of in the middle of it down here in terms of studios. But it'll be a good year. I think if everything goes according to plan. I know I told a few friends the best thing we could do for our industry right now is have about 3 years of uninterrupted good work.
Right,
So,
right. Unfortunately, that's not likely to happen because we have a little IATSE thing coming up here soon.
from what I hear, they're trying to avoid a strike, but
Well, I
kind
would
of like
hope
what the
so.
DGA was doing. They were doing what they could to avoid a strike.
It would be the best thing for everybody if everybody recognized, okay, let's just make IATSE whole. Let's not have a strike because no one can handle it. It's
Oh,
yeah,
you got a custom anodized red side plate from Mutiny. Gotcha.
yeah. Got the red one.
Ooh,
It's gorgeous. I got a candy cane.
that's nice.
Can the E and D be used with the Nisi primes? I would imagine. I
Not the
don't think the
PLs.
red, huh? Not the
Not the
PLs.
PLs.
Interesting.
No, I have them here. They protrude really far back, and their solution is to give you the option to have a mirrorless mount that uses the drop-in ND system on their own lenses.
Mm.
But yeah, it's one of the frustrating things about the Athena primes is they're really small. They're pretty nice. The focus action I really like. Image is interesting. I I have to make like a choice soon between which of the smaller lens sets I really enjoy. And I have them all here, which is interesting. And the good news is there's more focal lengths coming for the Athenas, but they are nice lenses and they're extremely affordable.
They're very affordable. I had finally reached out, had some time on my schedule to get a set in for review, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, you're too small. Sorry. Let us know
You're
when you're
too
bigger." I'm like,
small.
"Yeah, my
You're
YouTube
taller
channel's
than
too
most
small.
people
So
I know.
whatever." At some point, I'll review them.
Yeah, I at NAB because they came out of the blue, and usually, I mean, you know me, I usually know about stuff well in
Mm-hmm.
advance. So Nissi having new lenses like clocked me across the head. I tested them for 5 minutes on the show floor, and they were offering a pre-order discount. I was like, you know what?
Right.
Worst case scenario, I don't like them. I sell them, but I've kept them. I've shot with them. They're good. They're interesting.
Yeah, everything I saw at Film Tools at Cine Gear, I really liked, except for the 25. I just thought it was meh.
14 is the one I have questions about. That's interesting. 25 I'm okay with, but I don't know. We'll see.
14's not ever one of my favorites, so I always kind of give it a grain of salt.
Actually, since we're on the topic of lenses.
Yeah, we're always on the topic of lenses with you, Phil. What?
Well, here's things we can talk about.
All right.
That did not ship last year that were supposed to. The new IRIX 65 millimeter, which was shown at trade shows, was supposed to ship somewhere between September and November. Did not ship.
With another focal length supposedly by the end of the year.
Yeah. I wouldn't have expected the next one to come until NAB.
I mean, yeah, and I wonder why the 65 didn't come. Maybe just concerned that no one really had any money to spend. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. But the good news is I was able to put that lens on a camera at Cine Gear and actually look at it. That one's a must-buy for me because I really enjoy the IRIX primes. In fact, I am shooting them currently.
Really good. I played with it quite a bit there. Well, we ran around getting parts so that they could mount it up on their camera. I forget who all the people we got parts from because they didn't have the right camera with the right lens mount, and they looked pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. Really nice performer, good character. Another one I'm really looking forward to that I have a pre-order in for is the 21 millimeter dual lens.
Yeah, for
the mini primes. But that was also supposed to ship last year, and that company is making an entirely new prime set that they said was going to be around December, which, if I'm guessing how the delays have gone, NAB Cine Gear at the minimum for that next set. Yeah, I'm actually quite excited about those lenses.
And they're working on a couple of other things too. I have been talking with them, and they are game for loaning a set for review, but they were waiting. They wanted to send them out with another new product that they're working that should be done. So that sounded pretty cool too. Jose, bro, you get the big antenna. It doesn't interfere with the chassis, and it broadcasts everywhere, and you get hundreds of feet of range.
Yeah, I've put a bigger, longer antenna on my Raptors that I just fold under when I'm not.
I've got a whole radar dish that I put on mine that just.
They're the little. Well, I think Komodo X came with two antennas, a small one and a big one.
They did, yeah. That was the first one that came with both. They recognized it.
Yeah, Raptor only got the stubby one. I ended up buying, I don't know, for like $12 a 4-pack of the longer ones on Amazon.
I mean, it's weird to even have like even on V-RAPTOR and all those others, you put the little stubby on there, and it's blocked by all sides except for like one direction. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the stubby's like. I mean, I know the majority of productions on Earth are not using red control, but for people who rely on red control, you definitely want a better antenna. Like, that's just all it is. And I like what they did with KX. Like, Komodo X getting the two antennas was the smartest thing.
Yeah. And it's cheap. I mean, it's like $2, maybe $1.
What are hidden affordable cinema primes? Ooh. The first question you need to ask is what affordable means. On the kind of dirty cheap still, if you're game to explore this, you can still get a PL mount modified or adapted Helios. All of those more or less, Soviet lenses, a lot of them can be adapted to PL. And I only mention this because there's several companies rehousing them for significantly more money. My first Helios, I think cost me $15. And then the PL mount adapter was like also $15. For $30, I had, essentially something I can just go outside and have fun with. It's not the best shooting lens, but the look is there. The look didn't change.
Yeah. It's got so much character.
So on the dirt cheap, you can still do that. And then from there, There's stuff in the several $100 mark that are now native mirrorless mounts. I think for most people doing professional work, you're still relying on PL mount a lot. I am, as is most of the industry. So that's usually like 1,000 and up, approximately. I'm sure there's probably a sub $1,000 lens I'm not thinking of right now. And considering cinema lenses were tens of thousands of dollars for a while, I think that's
It
affordable.
also depends on whether or not you're talking about full frame or Super 35.
True.
What is the Mickey Mini Primes?
Yeah, Mickey Mini Primes,
which are essentially
series,
a previous
all that
design.
stuff.
Those are pretty slick.
Yeah, so lots of options.
Red needs a proper ND like a Venice or Airy. With current ND, you can't use most of the rangefinder lenses. Yeah,
that's interesting perspective. And generally speaking, rangefinder lenses perform very poorly on cinema cameras. So that's kind of the first point. For anyone who's undergone the process of using M-mount lenses on any of these cameras, the sensors are not designed for those lenses, especially wide angle, to do the best performance. And it comes, I mean, if you buy a new Leica M11 or any of the more recent M bodies, Leica literally has a different micro lens array on their sensor, which I think Sony has now adopted for their mirrorless cameras, but not necessarily always in their cinema bodies. So you still get you get color bleeding and lack of sharpness on edges, especially on wides. And it's a question of two things. Like the lenses are super small and beautiful, but you're dropping 10 grand plus on a lens like that. You should probably also look at other things in that ballpark. The ND is not the problem, by the way, with the rangefinder stuff, in my opinion.
Schneider's Xenars.
I love my Cine Xenars.
I don't think they're affordable.
You can find new sets for a fraction of what I paid for mine. I paid full price for mine way back when. In fact, it was one of the driving forces behind me even buying Komodo X, was to properly have a 6K image with that full image circle. If you remember, Komodo X is a little bit smaller, proper for a Super 35 3-perf image. And man, is it beautiful. I mean, I took those lenses out on KX day one, and I was just like, I miss shooting with those lenses so much.
Have you tried the Nikon 58.95 Noctua?
I have. They're fast, wide open. They both lack in ways that you would expect. I think the magic behind super speed lenses like that are, arguably hyper speed, because those are a stop faster than most other things. You have to understand how to shoot with them to get the best, even at the widest apertures, if that's what you're exploring. And where low light capable lenses like that shine is in low contrast situations. Like you can just create some beautiful buttery images if you're not torturing the intensity of the light. Well, yeah, iron glass is not expensive. And to their credit, I've talked to those guys once or twice over the years, probably more than that. Their new rehousing, their new V2, or is it V3, whatever version they're on, I saw those recently, and they're amazing. And they're now actually rehousing the Jenna glass from Zeiss way back. So they're doing more things, and I'm glad that they're expanding beyond the Soviet glass, because I'm kind of rooting for those guys to do bigger and better things.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be around.
Use the FPV goggle dual band antennas on my camera, and they work great range and reliability. I know that they're because I had tested a bunch of antennas. There's two different styles of the dual band antennas, and it has to do with which is positive, which is negative. And I think it's RB is the one that you want. it
I
totally
got a buddy who
changes your
uses a
range.
mushroom on his. I have to figure out which one he's using. With a 4-inch antenna like that on yours, though, I mean, I get quite a bit of range on a modern smartphone.
Yeah, I've had it out to 100 yards. It was
Yeah,
not. It was a little choppy at times, but I mean, wasn't bad at all for 100 yards.
yeah,
Let's see, 50 millimeter Subalux looks so buttery on KX. Yeah, pretty much anything
yeah,
logo.
yeah.
eBay.
So considering that set of glass, I think was like, well, and considering I have the 14, you're looking
Yeah,
at
they were like
probably a
8K a piece, weren't they?
$50,000 to $60,000 lens set for all of the focal lengths. If you find the 5 set, honestly, for anything under $30,000, you should be looking at it very closely if you enjoy them. Yeah.
Saving for the Komodo X right now.
I suspect long term those lenses will go back up in price. I do strongly think we're in this really interesting zone where like K35s and even super speeds are like getting really high prices, but I've been seeing ultra primes go super cheap and S4s go super cheap, which I think equally have their own jazz to them. And a lot of people just miss the bus on the Schneider Cine Xenars.
I don't know what happened with the Ultra Primes. Why did they fall out of love with everybody? I saw a bunch of sets for sale.
I think there's several fascinating things happening in this industry. We have more glass options literally every week, more than ever. I was just talking to Marcus Fortner today about this, and it's the best time for cinematographers, but it's the most complicated time when it comes to the cinema glass market, from a rental standpoint, from an investment standpoint. And ultra primes were like the bread and butter set for many DPs for many years. And I still think if you're shooting Super 35, like if you have an Alexa 35, those are a great lens. But are they the best thing on the market? Are they the most modern thing on the market? Do they have /I or not? Those are questions that people are looking for these days. So, yeah. I'd shoot a feature on those. I'd shoot a feature on any of the lenses I've said so far, like in that category.
Ultra Primes, yeah, 2025. Yeah, it's totally crazy. And those are such clean, nice glass. They're very well known. They have a look all of their own. Very respectable.
I have some frame grabs from something I shot in South Korea off the 32 mil Ultra Prime, and I still, if you found a really well maintained set of Ultra Primes, it's hard to even find sharper glass than that even anywhere. So, yeah, I just love looking. I was shooting some really like large diffuse windows and some interiors that we lit to death with a table and textures. You could see the fabric and the glasses in the hands. It was all about skin and beauty. But I also went for some high contrast lighting, and man, did those hold up so well. So well. Yeah.
Let's see here. What other lenses are, what are some other lenses you were going to talk about?
Let's see. What else is on the horizon? Well, things I can't talk about.
Yeah, talk about those.
That I don't mind hinting about. Like, this is still going to be a big glass year. And it's going to be a camera year too, for that matter. On the still side, there's a lot going on that will influence the motion side. I'm mostly heavily invested in RF mount right now, obviously because of red and the Canon bodies. I've only have a few Sony cameras left, and I'm really looking forward to Canon adding the faster wide L series primes, because that's really glaringly missing right now.
Those two that were teased out there are really slick. Another 1.2 is really nice.
I don't know if I mentioned this on your stream, and I know Carlos invested in the newest 24 to 105.
Yeah, he is 105, yeah.
So I have a very strong opinion about something. Maybe not the best opinion to put forward, but I like the strategy that Canon's going with their lenses. But some of their more recent affordable options, some of which are incredibly high quality, some of the interesting ones like the 16 and the 24 rely so heavily on the digital lens corrections, because they're essentially fisheye lenses.
Yep.
And similarly, the 24 to 105 or 24 to 105, depending on how you use it and on what camera you use, it might be relying on that. Even though it's an incredibly sharp lens, it's designed very well. Is there any chance Red can develop an IAF system?
Autofocus.
You would need some sort of accessory to tap into that. You could put a sensor inside an EVF.
But I don't know that that's going to have eye autofocus. And I would wonder how much horsepower is actually available in these cameras to do that.
I think for how we use motion picture cameras, I think eye autofocus works great for stills. But the way your eyes move and how you would have to make some software to adapt to that, what I'd much prefer in terms of relying on autofocus in cinema is having some concise touch menu situation. So if you touch subject A and say you have a programmable focus pull with the proper easing that you can, change the curve essentially, I think that's powerful. And if you can rely on that, and maybe if you integrated on touch also eye awareness. So if I touched your head but said, hey, even though I'm touching the subject, look for the eye. I think that would be an intelligent way to go about that.
I think it'd be really slick if you could do something like that you could touch the two subjects and then it just waits for you to actually use some kind of control and it nails your focus every time. That would be a win.
Yeah. And you can do that now with some of the wireless systems where you set your mark on two sides and you can go between them. But, I think autofocus in general is such a interesting development because the companies who have been on the forefront of that or have had much different R&D budgets than many cinema camera companies do. Like Canon's been doing AF, Nikon's been doing AF for a long time. Sony, a little bit newer to the party, but they threw the whole bag at the thing. And they've also had the experience of the sensors and some of the sensor technology that's relying, that needs to exist for AF. So, exactly, Carlos. Yeah.
Right.
Still bummed it didn't turn into a 24 to 135.
Pull focus. Well, I mean, Jose, it is kind of an art form. I mean, they pay first ACs for a reason.
I'm there with Jose because there's an art and craft to pulling focus. I actually love pulling focus. It's one of the things I enjoy doing with my camera a lot. And there's an artistry to it that beyond the utilitarian of like, is this thing in focus? I love pointing the camera. There was that Goonies homage that I did ages ago, which was a full-on motion control move. That was a choreographed scene with an actor. And I just did it for funsies when I was doing a test with Monstro. But everything happening in that shot, every focus point, even when the guy is holding up the key and that thing's perfectly in focus and all that was designed. And that's not something you can do with autofocus. It's not even how that would work in any way, shape, or form. But for someone doing a 3-cam interview with 2 people and you just want them to always be in focus and stuff, and you don't necessarily have the budget for 3 ACs, it's useful to have this stuff.
DJI LiDAR for manual. I mean, at some point they're going to make that rapidly available.
You can do it now, but if I was reading between the tea leaves, I think DJI is going to make an accessory that is more accessible for other cameras to use that technology.
I mean, to me, they should make an API and let cameras interface so that it's all native to cameras. That's a win.
I wouldn't mind that. I think that gets into the complication zone. I think the real thing they got to do is figure out how to make a discernible kit that maybe allows you to interface with it in an app form. Just because it will take longer for various camera companies to integrate that, SDK or whatever they do, API or whatever.
Yeah, Patrick, it's not so much the touch autofocus, it's the touch make aware of what you want in focus.
Yeah, everyone has touch autofocus now. It's more about refining and finessing it into a way that motion picture professionals would like to use it. Autofocus is a powerful tool, just like every type of pulling focus is. But right now, there is a barrier. Like if you look at just one of the mirrorless cameras, and you turn on tracking and you're just panning away and you're following this person walking up and down the street and it's doing pretty well, that's great. But that's just simple tracking the subject. I'm talking about operating shots. And that is a huge divide where autofocus right now, I mean, there are some systems where you just tap it and it does focus and you have no control over it. It will just find it as fast as the lens can and the hardware can, and that's it. With Murano, I think that's going to happen sooner, we think, in the cinema line. Yeah, Sony hasn't really done much on the autofocus front on the Venice, but their smaller cameras they have. And Red's put autofocus into all of the DSMC3 cameras so far. So I think it's going to be a growing trend. I think Canon's next Cinema EOS line is going to be like full-fledged crazy autofocus stuff. And then...
Say my mic volume is really low. Is that any better there? Is it usually on the loud one?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Arri, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think they're really relying on that because, you know, if for anyone who hasn't used a light ranger or anything like that, that's really cool technology. How that shows up on the screen, how you can actually control it, the graphic user interface, for lack of a better way of saying it, to show you what's in focus and stuff is great.
Yeah, I mean, yes, focus pulling is a lot of fun in that you could create so much emotion and so much transition just with that focus pull. And you know, where do you pause or do you slow and accelerate here? And Jose doesn't know anything about that, but that ruined by people relying on. Yeah. I mean, autofocus.
No, it happens, and yeah, exactly. I think. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, Scott, but focus pulling is something that's a developed skill.
Oh, for sure.
And
no, it's
yeah.
I mean, being around some really good first ACs and watching them do their magic, they're like, "Oh, you'd be a good first AC." I'm like, "No, I don't want to be that. No." Yeah. It's like shooting a wedding film. It's just a lot of pressure right then and there. Yeah,
do you have a
let
banner
it be somebody
going
else's
for your
fault.
salt right now and your pepper?
What's that?
You have a banner ad going for your salt and stuff. That's awesome.
You gotta do something.
Actually, what did I put your salt on yesterday? I made kind of like a kebab and vegetable thing, and I used your salt on it.
That's really good, actually. If you do, let's see, onions, peppers, pineapple, chicken, mushrooms. Oh God, there's one more thing. And you cut them all up and make kebabs and season them with the salt and pepper. And just, oh man, that's super good. I'll put that on my list to show. API, yes, yep. API would be good. For narrative, realizing I'm a total noob. Does it matter if you're focused on the subject's eye or tip of the nose? Oh, definitely. Typically, if your focus is the human, I would say the eye. But sometimes it's what they're holding.
I'll give you there is a gigantic squirrel in my backyard at the moment. I'll give you the young cinematographer / film school answer. Some of the things you need to discover as you are learning about exposing and creating imagery is depth of field, what you want in focus. Hyperfocal distance is a wonderful thing to learn about, but in truth, there's only one point in an image that's actually in focus, even at a deeper aperture. So for someone like me who often shoots at deeper apertures, critical focus is still extremely important to maintain high image quality. You may get depth of field for like a whole head, but you can tell if your focus is here or on an ear, which is always somehow the culprit, or a little bit front focused. But yeah, I mean, for some of us, I mean, I'm very, for the lack of a classier way to say it, I'm tight-assed about hitting my marks. So I mean, shooting a couple thousand yards out to a mountain range, infinity ever so slightly more makes a difference. Well, one of the crazier things about my helicopter aerial work is I'm sometimes integrating incredibly strange focus pulls for those shots, because I might have subject matter that's 100 to 300 feet away from my lens, But as the shot's developing, I'll either go closer slightly. We're talking like diffusing a bomb, focus pulling, to infinity. And there's this one shot I did in Utah a couple of years back now that we rack to infinity as we go by the closest stuff to us, which is kind of like 50 to 100 feet away. That luckily, as the shot draws, you would never notice it. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve. I don't want anything in that shot to distract you. If I'm doing this or pulling wildly or just leaving it where it is, it felt wrong. And there are a lot of people who set it and forget it in terms of shooting aerials for focus. But
no, it's an art there too. I mean, you're not just going forward. You've plotted a course. You've plotted what is interesting on that course, and you want to kind of focus on that. I did see a new one of the screensavers come out, which was kind of funny because you're going into like the side of a snowy mountain, and it didn't look like you were going to make it. You were way far away, and you're going straight at it. And then all of a sudden you kind of rise up over it.
Oh, is it the one with the Stegosaurus blades?
Yeah, I think so. No, not that one. That was Yosemite. But this one was in like Brazil or someplace. You're flying straight into a mountain, a solid mountain range, and it's all snow at the top of this mountain. But it looks like the mountain's like 15,000 feet, and you're at 7,500. And you're coming in just straight at it, and then all of a sudden you kind of raise up at the very end.
Yeah. We have been getting a little bit more open-minded with some of the camera movement. Generally, a lot of what we're doing in the air is something you would do on a studio lot in terms of like a dolly move or whatever. But like, there's a couple shots that are like full-fledged operated, meaning like I'm panning in following a terrain or something.
That I've seen several of those.
It depends on so many things on what people enjoy. That shot was one of those, I feel it, the terrain speaking to me. Even though I've been given, or have designed some way of doing this that kind of makes you fit in a box. It's those opportunities when you don't adhere to those rules is interesting. I use the pepper every day.
Pepper, it's good stuff.
That sounds like addiction there, Michael. No, I'm joking.
You can't be addicted to pepper. Salt, maybe. So, two areas, otherwise why would you become...
Like are you saying if it was an Alexa 35 or an LF?
Two areas, I don't know what that...
If I was going to buy an LF, and let's just presume people mean the mini LF because that's the more common purchase, I would look to find something that's an equal size sensor that has a smaller body and probably more capability, probably higher frame rate or something.
Complementary on all levels.
There's a lot of mirrorless cameras that basically are full frame sensors, so you have your choice there. Image matching, I mean, color-wise, I can match anything. That's not a problem. Now, if you're talking about the Alexa 35 being a smaller, I know people who have bought an Alexa 35 and a Komodo X, and that is a very common thing. And sometimes people will shoot with one or the other more, which is also interesting.
There are some quirks to a 35.
Komodo X is really, well, Komodo in general, just with that global shutter, and as we're seeing, it's going to be an increasing trend now that Sony is kind of putting their foot in the sand.
Yeah, but they put their foot in there, but it wasn't necessarily shocking when the DR numbers came out, and it's an average camera. It's not great at it's
but
cool.
It's still
it's
good for a global shutter sensor.
Yeah, exactly. And for a sports photographer, they're not going to care. They're not going to be shooting in that super wide dynamic range. They want that shot.
We are in a weird limbo zone with sensor technology at the moment. There are new sensor technologies that companies are coming to terms with that they feel gives them the best image quality one way or another. And it's not like these companies are going to invest in 15 different sensor technologies. They're going to whittle it down to just a few. And to not get too technical here, what we have really right now is front side illuminated sensors, back side illuminated sensors, stacked sensors, which could be either or, but typically backside. And then we also have the readout, which is now very fast readout, very slow readout, or global shutter. There's also fake global shutter, which nothing, thankfully, that we deal with has to deal with any of that, but I've seen it. That's a really strange look on how that gets done.
Alistair Chapman seemed to indicate that the way he described the A93's global shutter, he seemed to indicate that was actually a cached global shutter.
I'll have to test it and see. I'm going to look at that camera in a more abstract way, and it's kind of this weird moment right now. Like, Sony came out with the A1 ages ago, and the R5 came out quite a while ago now too. And even though the A1 is a higher resolution sensor, the R5, I would argue, is better image quality overall. And I had an A1 for a while. It's cleaner, but there's also like a thickness to the image when you're manipulating things. I think Canon had more color bit depth. And for anyone who knows how to use DC RAW and do things, you can find your own decision, or uncover your own discoveries, I guess would be the best way to do that. But I love the A1 as a camera. It was snappy. It shot a high resolution image. I really liked working at lower ISOs with the camera, like maybe up to 400 or 800. It's kind of the magic now I'm discovering more and more with some of the newer middle format, medium format cameras too. Is they can go crazy high with the ISO, and the Sony sensor and likely Sony image processor allows them to maintain relatively noise-free images pretty high. But as you're raising that ISO, there is a texture I hate that comes from that. I actually hate it. It drives me insane. It looks like bad digital. But if you know how to shoot with those systems, holy moly, you can get great results out of them.
The A1 to me, it feels like it was a camera that they basically threw everything they could to make the best camera they could put out there. But then they kind of abandoned it. They haven't done anything with it.
They didn't abandon it. I see the A1. Here's how this works.
It's been out for what, 3 years now?
This is not breaking. This isn't breaking an NDA or anything like that. This is just how it is. The A1, the Venice 2 8K, and subsequently the Burano are generational improvements on a certain type of sensor design.
Yep.
That stretch across different price points as well as camera feature sets, and that's really what it is. To get what they want out of that sensor for a cinema image, you need a body about the size of a Venice 2. And I think they found ways to get things down in size for the Burano. But at the cost of a few things, like things that bum me out about the Burano is to get 60p out of it, you have to crop into the sensor. Your codec is limited to the lowest encoded OCN or highest encoded OCN. I'd love to see that step up a level or two. I don't see really reasons why they had to do this way.
If they're cropping in, then it tells you that either they're using a different sensor than any of the bigger brothers, or there's nowhere near enough processing power to be able to handle the readout that's coming out of there. But I'm guessing it's the sensor just physically can't do 10 bits out at full readout at 60.
Oh, I think it can. I think that camera is a balancing act between power draw. I think there's ways to tweak that camera to allow it to do more, but I think they're also in danger of also poaching their Venice 2 market if they get it to do much more. If you catch my drift.
Well, it is definitely priced high enough that it's getting people's eyeballs going, wait a second.
You can buy 3 Buranos for Venice 2, or 2 in a decent kit, you know?
Well, there's some used Venice 2s now. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and this is the thing with the camera market. You know, we don't talk about this at all on your stream. We should. Every certain time of the year, there's questions on the internet. Why is everybody selling their so-and-so?
Oh,
it's
God.
Every group. I see it on Facebook. I see it everywhere. And there's so many things that people need to understand about when, how, and why people sell cameras. If you have a camera system that you've paid off and you're planning on moving on to something else, that's a reason to sell. If you have just moved on to something else, it's time to sell. If you have too many of cameras, if you don't use the camera as much. I mean, I meet people who bought a fair investment in camera equipment and found that they still only shoot 4 times a year. And it's like, why do I even do this? I should just rent. And some people, that's their pathway. Other people who shoot, 120, 200 plus days a year, which this is the category I'm in, it's insane not owning cameras. Because just the concept of me constantly going to rental houses would drive me mad. I've already had to go through that a few years, and that was pain, absolute pain.
You have any thoughts on the Nodal 1 speed booster for Komodo X?
I haven't tested it. I've tested quite a few speed boosters / focal reducers. It comes down to the glass and how well it's built. It looked okay.
Does it mess with the flocking on the KX?
I mean, anything's possible there, and that's
It seems like every single one is messing with the flocking.
Oh, you mean it's actually hitting?
Yeah, it's bumping up against the.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a sticky widget. I remember when the 28 Canon pancake lens came out, people were like, "Oh, it doesn't fit on Komodo," but like, Red had no idea Canon was going to make a lens that was going to protrude that far back because it was not part of the initial spec. They got away with it on their cameras, and they're like, "Cool, we'll do that." Which sucks because it's kind of a fun little lens. That would be a great little banger. But you can kind of modify the rear of that if you know what you're doing.
Sony loves to use their user bases. I mean, their user base is happy to do so too.
I will have a hot take for you, Carlos, and for you, Scott. Everyone is using their user base as beta testers now. The problem is everyone is so rushed to get product to market and start making revenue quickly that we're going to undergo firmware updates and sometimes even hardware revisions. The Venice 1, if I remember correctly, you had to go through a firmware upgrade that also swapped the cooling system, if I remember correctly. It was very strange to have a camera being sent in for a firmware update, if you catch my drift. But yeah, that was part of that. Those were like the early days.
Well, that's the way it used to be anyway.
I think to Sony's credit, and sort of maybe not to their credit, is even before the VRAPTOR launched, like they announced it last year, they had a website with a firmware path. And this was my frustration with the Venice was, I think it was 9 months to a year and a half after the Venice came out, the camera became like functional for most people. Like everything you wanted to pay for was there. And I think that's going to be the journey with VRAPTOR. And, us as, I mean, I'm still primarily a red shooter. It's like 90% of what I shoot on. I think the pros and cons are Red is very good at constantly doing firmware updates, although now they're a little bit more spaced out. They're still doing betas every now and again, but they are legitimately at least still taking feedback and implementing it. I've suggested stuff that now is in DSMC3. There's stuff I have suggested that's not there.
That's not there,
which, yep. I'm a big boy. I'm a grown up, and I can understand maybe everything I want is not everything everyone would want. But like, man, getting Geoscope back was like, I mean, I damn near bought a cake.
Sitting at home eating your cake. That's great.
No, it's quite literally one of the best exposure tools for modern digital cinema cameras or any type of imaging system, if you think about it. And when we didn't have it suddenly, we had it for DSMC2. I was like, don't take my baby away from me. Like,
well, I think it was, how much can they get out to get a camera out? And it's, I mean, Komodo X, like comparing it to OG as far as how it functions, even with like user pages and just everything about it, they learned so much. It's great.
I'm still sticking by my statement I made when Komodo X launched, and even now to this day, dollar for dollar, it is the best camera on the market. Like, if you don't need the high speed of, say, an 8K Super 35 Raptor,
Right.
and you enjoy the pros that come with global shutter, I mean, that camera for a $10,000 camera is incredibly capable to shoot damn near every
It
type of
checks
scripted and
all the
commercial content.
boxes, really does, other than a fast boot time, which you're never going to appease those people with Red.
I'm in a weird spot because I love the VistaVision sensor. It is something. Red's take on what modern VistaVision is incredibly smart in terms of having a slightly wider format than 36 by 24 sensors.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting us closer to something optically. I don't want to get into too much theory or science related stuff because there are still people in this world who think larger sensors don't have any impact on images, which we'll save that for off the record.
Does Kinefinity have a foot jamming the door open?
Kinefinity is in an interesting position. They're obviously a heavily inspired brand who's had several major missteps along the way, but they are still providing affordable cameras for people. I think Zcam has had a much more thorough impact across the industry. I've worked on major motion pictures that use Zcam. I'm talking like $100 million plus films that had Red, Sony, Zcam, like all of them there. I have yet to see a Kinefinity camera used on anything like that. And they're here now. They're in my backyard. They have an office here. But
literally in LA there.
I think at a certain point, I won't say who, but there's a certain camera manufacturer who is really proud of their new mirrorless camera. And they describe the release of their new product as game over, like this thing does everything. And I made the statement that, I have better cameras that do more than this. There is no game over if that's what your resolve is with this technology. If you're trying to enter the motion picture market and you think this is game over, you're 15 miles away. You haven't traveled the ocean. You haven't gotten onto the beach. You're still, you can see the land, and that's good news. So it made me so grumpy. And now that people have been using those cameras, it's kind of funny to see the marketing versus the actual reality. That's a whole other conversation about YouTubers quitting and stuff like that. We got to get down to that.
That was an interesting one. How Sony good at marketing Venice cameras is the best low light Cine camera, which is not true. V-RAPTOR is way better. VistaVision, yes, and Venice 1 and 2 plus RHINO, where Red fails marketing V-RAPTOR. I don't think Red's failing that, actually. Red doesn't do a lot of marketing.
If I was in charge of marketing for any of these companies, I would do lots of things differently. But Venice tapped into a very similar vein to how Arri kind of gained favor of rental houses and subsequently a lot of DPs who primarily rent rather than buy. In fact, most people who shoot on Venice, you'll find that they don't own the cameras. It's not the best low light camera. Raptor is actually better, but I'll make that a spicier stew. Monster with the low light optimized OLPF might still be better than anything that we're talking about.
The V-RAPTOR VistaVision? Interesting.
It might come at a cost. Well, I mean, you have to keep in mind the color science filter, that filter array that blocks IR, UV, and probably some other anti-reflective stuff, is really good in Raptor. And I take that any day of the week for general shooting because I can shoot deep stops into the sun, not deal with any of those artifacts.
Orbs,
yeah. But if you knew that and you primarily needed something that could see into the dark, having something you could swap out, I still think shows value. And I bet you if there was a low light version of V-RAPTOR, that thing could see, that would be at least a stop or two more into the dark.
The low light OLPF, I always had a problem with the way it rendered red light, direct red light.
I'm not saying there's concessions. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be concessions that you make. And I always enjoyed using the skin tone highlight OLPF.
That had the very best for red light, yeah.
Yeah, I love the way that its way of reacting to light intensity kind of gave you a smoother roll-off, too. Very subtle, but noticeable.
Glass really needs fast shutter speed, keep up. Also means normal ISO. So the Sony GS is a hard no in that scenario. No, I don't think so. Oh, whoa! What was that? Device not connected. Oh, okay. Phil, your camera went offline. That was the funniest thing because he went like Atari 2600 for a moment there. It literally made the same sound as an Atari 2600. Someone dying. So that where global shutter on the Sony came in as a problem is their dynamic range, which is the problem with growing global shutter in sensor size. And so they had to limit their ISO. They had to ride that kind of line. So you shouldn't want to shoot a 25,000 ISO, but that is max on that one, and I think it'll be okay. Patrick, what is backside illuminated? It is more. It's simple and complicated. But if you go and search that after the show, you don't want to do it now. It is a way of extracting a little more dynamic range out of a sensor. It's interesting. HBO camera assessment shocked every DP when they saw V-RAPTOR was better. Yes, exactly. That camera assessment, it shocked some. It didn't shock many because some of them knew it, and that's why they used the VistaVision V-RAPTOR for that. Illuminated. Told me ProRes 444 HQ is good enough of a codec for post latitude. I mean, 444XQ is dumb because it is way more data rate than you need for what you're gaining out of it. Focus pulling is like being Yoda and feeling the force. Yeah, this is true. There we got Phil back. There we go. Oh, he gave me the thumbs up this time.
We can chalk that up to a weird complication with a web browser, from what I can find out.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because the camera actually was still working. It was the browser that had an issue.
It literally went green like you were on an old VT100 terminal, and then it made the sound of like a character dying in an Atari 2600. Like,
I didn't want to break it to you this early, but I'm actually AI. So.
Oh, well, it does explain a lot. It's like,
yeah.
I was going to place an order for the Burano, but changed my mind after seeing Sony won't offer full frame sensor usage, and they sell open gate licenses for Venice 5K. Well, that is Sony's model. They've done that for years.
I think Eric smartened up on the Alexa 35 by not doing the licensing.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts on the concept of charging for licenses. Like, there are people who literally buy these cameras who never shoot anamorphic. And if you need it, maybe that's a good way to make some additional money. I don't know if there's any patents involved with anybody when it comes to those settings in camera.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Right across that. I thought it was interesting. Like, Sony just announced for their FX3 and their FX6, they're announcing they're now going to have shutter angle, and they're going to have an additional anamorphic mode. But it's not coming until
frame guide update. The frame guide update.
Oh, the frame guide was $100. Yeah, you could have custom ones for $100 and something bucks. But the shutter angle won't be out until May or March, and then August for another one. It's like, why would you announce that?
I don't know. It's confusing. And that's something I will credit Red and even Canon not really going into that. Like, Canon's been much more aggressive about their firmware updates, but I think it's also due in fact that they haven't been releasing like an R5 competitor, so they got to keep that camera relevant. Red's a little bit of a different story, where thankfully with the price of the camera comes active software development, at least for the length of the camera's life, and sometimes a little bit beyond that. That's happened a couple times, just a little bit. But I still see people asking for, I see people asking for Red 1 updates. I mean, that camera's over 15 years old now.
Way over.
Yeah.
So many people bought Alexa 35 just to rent it out. Yeah, I mean, the timing on that was so bad. I know several people who bought specifically. They even stretched their budget to get it so they could rent it, and then didn't get a single rental.
I even think against the strike, though, I'm pretty tuned into ARRI and even companies that sell the cameras or rent the cameras, and it's been interesting to see strike or not, if you saturate the market with certain things and there's other options, and people say, you know what, we can just shoot on the regular Alexa, we don't need 4K, there's still that going on. I would shoot with the 35 over the original Alexa any day of the week. The LF, however, we can have an interesting conversation. Yeah, it's interesting.
LF is actually the camera I dislike the most of them.
Which one?
The LF. I would take an Alexa Mini over the LF.
So my whole thing with cameras, and I remember telling Jared this exactly this way, is I don't care if the camera is a watermelon with a lens stuck in it. If it makes images that I want to create, right, I will find a way to use that. Which is kind of similar. If you've seen some of the modifications I've had to do for, like, I mean, I use extremely expensive gimbals and stuff, and we've had to build custom hardware. We find ways to do things, but yeah, I don't think the LF doesn't win. The Mini LF doesn't win for ergonomics. In fact, that whole form factor sucked. I think they did a much better job on the Alexa 35. And I think Arri is probably the only company who gets away with that, by the way. Like, if anybody else did that, Canon actually had a problem. The C700, that body form factor, when that camera was fresh on the market for 2 years, everyone who talked to me about that camera was like, they hated that camera just because of the form factor. And I never heard a single complaint except for there's too many buttons on the C500 Mark II. That's the only complaint I got from people.
That is also a funny one, too. Carlos, VT100 terminals are DEC. DEC did digital. Did the VT100 terminals that allowed you to interface as a Mini. You're talking IBM clients. You're talking 3270. What was the other one? 5268.
I'll give you a funny one. Way back in the day, when I worked at Rhythm & Hughes, for us to integrate and work with our densitometer, we connected via Weiss terminal, plugged in Ethernet into the wall. And that's how, when I had to read our densitometer control strips from Kodak, that's how we were logging it. And then I would take that calibration data elsewhere at the time on a Linux box. Just crazy.
I mean, every phone system on the planet before voice over IP had a VT100 terminal. That's how you connected to it. There's no way other way.
DSMC3 does have gyro data.
Oh yeah, all of them ever since Epic have gyro.
Yeah, and I think that's been a misnomer. I think it's more of like people don't know how to use that data. In fact, there's only one tool that I know that makes it even easy. So.
Yeah, there's only one company that's done anything with it, and it's a dance to do it with Red. Red has it there, but they're not going to help you. They want you to be a partner.
You can do 1 frame per second, but you can't do it at the shutter speeds people want to as well. So I think the kind of weird place we are right now is I think Red really was trying to solve a lot of the user error stuff. I know this from talking to people at NAB, like some of the core people behind Raptor, because there's so much I really like about the camera, and I had like an initial reaction like everybody, and I've been through this a few times, so like I can just do this with the top handle, like that's not a big deal. But like the mount thing was such a weird talking point, but the difference between a mount adapter that bolts to the camera or interchangeable mount that bolts to the camera is negligible for someone like me, but for a lot of people are like, oh, that's impossible. I'm like, no, it's going to be stronger actually, because you're going to be dealing with different bolts and so little things like
Core, I think Core is the right answer. That when they came out with V-RAPTOR, they said, let's build the best, compact and cheap, that does all the things that most people want. And everybody wanted it to be a complete and full replacement, even though it was basically half the price of what it replaced.
Yeah. Well, I got the call a few times. I know people who did camera tests and then they got the Raptor, a DSMC2 body on the day, and they didn't realize about the low pass filter. And they were shooting like ISO 3200 with the skin tone highlight OLPF, which is not what you want to do. Right. So I know Red solved that problem. The body design of Raptor, I actually think, is incredibly elegant. I do not like the orientation of the CFX card. It could be the other way. That would make me happier.
Good point.
I think losing a couple buttons on the operator side of the camera is still kind of a tearjerker for me. But I know that they were struggling for space, and we're lucky we even got a record button up there, even though it's a small one.
I kind of wish that like V-RAPTOR, not XL, but V-RAPTOR had a top screen instead of a side screen. I think that would have been slick, especially for that form factor.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah.
XL is 100% designed for an AC, but
yeah, it's kind of weird. I use my cameras a lot of different ways. I think they hit a home run with the side screen because that was, if you remember, everyone was complaining that Red didn't have that, and everyone else did. And at the time, Red was so focused on getting the touchscreen interface down, which they did.
What I don't like about the side screen is it's not touchscreen. It's like it's so slow to sit there and push buttons.
I don't know. I got that pretty quick. That's not too bad for me. I sometimes
user pages on touchscreen
without the touchscreen. But yeah, once you use Komodo or Komodo X and you have the top screen, I remember telling Jared back when the OG Komodo came out, I just had a regular small HD bolted on top of that thing. But I was like, this is insane. I'm actually using the focus tools up front on the big monitor and then my exposure stuff on the little monitor. And I could like literally, it was such an efficient way of working. And I was having so much fun shooting that way. Like, I think I kept saying, like, this is probably the most fun I've had shooting because, like, everything's just kind of right there in front of me. And I'm not a big fan of, like, dual screen laptops or anything like that or folding phones or whatever, but, like, that was really awesome. And sometimes I'll actually use a smartphone. I have a new iPhone 15 that I will sometimes play up to the camera just to have access to tools as a second display.
Kevin, on the 1 frame per second, I know a lot of history on this. I have to be careful how to say it, but there's the bang for the buck, so to speak, is not there. That's why it's not in all these cameras. It takes a lot of work to do it, and it takes a lot of storage in the firmware to make it happen. And so it's kind of like what V-RAPTOR is. It was the best of everything that people wanted and needed, and it has a few things that they didn't. Plus, the reason they were doing it in DSMC 1 and 2 was to be able to counteract the low light inability of that camera, so they could do drag some frames. You could shoot time lapse and get longer shutter to get the light in there. Same thing with frame averaging and frame summing. Those were features because the low light wasn't there. Yeah.
I think it's a hard one too, because from a camera standpoint, none of the digital cinema cameras on the market, and this is where mirrorless kind of excels, where you have the dedicated photo modes to doing effective long exposures. Like if you're doing a 1 second exposure with a 360 shutter, 1 second, you want something that has a more integrated dark frame reduction and things like that to really help you with the noise. And, I'll say this, some of the things that it's still early days with this new generation of cameras, but things like HDRX for time lapse, I still think is a high value thing. And even for general shooting, I think that'll probably rear its head again because we have these frame rates and data rates now that can support it. Frame averaging and frame summing, I don't know about that.
No, those are not necessary anymore.
I don't think they're not necessary. I think frame averaging...
Frame summing was never really cool. Frame averaging was cool.
Summing's cool if you got to shoot in the dark.
Frame summing, though, is noisy as hell.
Well, yeah, it depends on how you... Yeah.
Summing is the one that multiplies noise, and averaging reduces noise, but you don't gain brightness.
I think it's so crazy because DSMC 2, actually DSMC 1, it started with DSMC 1. I saw Red was just throwing everything at it, like everything you want a camera to be able to do. And I think with DSMC 2, that was refined to the nth degree. And I think with DSMC 3, they were making a camera system that's much more approachable for a wider audience. And now I think they're kind of in this zone where it's like, how do we bring some stuff back? And just like the previous launches, we didn't get things like certain accessories or firmware updates until further down the line as they were figuring stuff out, how to best implement it or even change it. So I'm excited about what's coming, both camera and accessory wise soon. And that's what keeps me enticed with Red, because for 99% of my filmmaking, Raptor does everything. And the only things I can't do are like these long, crazy exposures, in which case I'll just grab any of my mirrorless cameras and go do that for, 15-second exposures or whatever. Like I'm not.
The thing I really liked about frame averaging on Epic and DSMC2 was I could go in on a motion control shot and put it like 4 times frame averaging and go in really slow at a very slow frame rate, and it literally looks like Star Wars. You're getting up close and you get that beautiful motion blur and you get so clean of an image. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I miss about it.
Well, and you have to keep in mind, frame averaging in camera, I think, is still something only Phase 1 does, which is a $50,000 medium format camera. I don't think any of the mirrorless cameras do that in camera at the moment.
You're talking other than DSMC 1 and 2?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, Red and Phase 1, like that's it.
Yeah,
like,
that was it. Yeah, I don't know of a single camera that does any of that.
I'm actually shocked that Hasselblad didn't integrate it in the X2D. I'm more than shocked, because they have memory in the camera to do it.
I would have guessed that it has to do with how many people need it, want it, and know how to use it,
or they didn't have time to make the firmware to do it yet. Just like there are many firmware updates so far that added things like autofocus. I don't know what I said, but that's curious. No, I think
a scenario. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking for an overglancing statement, I think Red's made a really nice decision when it comes to balancing price to performance ratio, and there is still no camera on the market that touches either of the Raptors in terms of their core functionality at any price point. That's the important thing for me. And arguably, Komodo X, I mean, we'll have to see how the new Sony, but the new Sony is a mirrorless camera, not a cinema camera that you can get easy audio and power with a proper battery. You're still going to make that camera bigger if you're ever going to shoot anything on it.
Yeah, Adam Brennan, he has the Phase 1, and so he's saying frame averaging has to happen in software.
Not the newest cameras. If you have an IQ,
he has the latest one.
Really?
The big like 100 plus megapixel. What is it? 150 megapixel.
He has an IQ4, not an IQ3 or 2.
He bought it
from a while.
He bought it right before he got his stroke. It sucked.
Oh, that sucks.
And that was when was that, Carlos? When was that? The middle of last year. It was right.
That's another. I'm so curious about what's going to happen with Phase 1 right now. I mean, I deal with cameras of every sort, still in motion and even weirder stuff. And Phase 1 they haven't released a new camera in 5 or 6 years. Like, essentially, they've had new models, but like it's the same thing.
Right.
They need a new hardware update, and just in terms of making the menus better. But they are the case in example of like having a watermelon-shaped thing that makes a beautiful image if you're patient with it. There still isn't anything really out there that does 150 megapixels,
right?
Like that. So
I don't know. The new Samsung S22 has a 200 megapixel little camera.
24 is the newest one. 23 was
whatever it is. I don't keep up with that. I have to agree with Carlos that he hasn't found a scenario where KX doesn't basically fit perfectly in. And I mean, people are asking me all the time, V-RAPTOR or Komodo, and I literally say the only reason you would choose V-RAPTOR is if you had to have 8K or you had to have the frame rates. Otherwise, Komodo is a dream.
That's pretty much my decision making. Is a lot of my work we make for 8K or higher even, which requires other solutions, but meaning like arrays and stuff. But Komodo X, if you said, Phil, we need a film shot in Super 35 and delivered in 4K. I mean, I think I told you, Scott, like between the 8K Super 35 and Komodo X, I would have a hard time deciding. Like that's an interesting conversation.
It is for an 8K. forget which reference that was, Brandon. We were talking about a camera. I think you were talking about a camera company.
Well, I'll even put a little poison in that water. Off-the-shelf components now are so readily available that people can make custom cameras.
Yep.
With decent image quality. But I will say this, experimenting in that realm a lot.
I know who you're referring to now. I'm not going to say
it's not just that guy. No, it's not just that guy. It's other people, because those sensors are used elsewhere in other cameras that are not marketed, if you catch my drift.
Lexa 35 seems to be more compact to rig than an LF. I don't agree with that. A 35 is actually heavier.
Yeah, it is heavier. I think it's easier to rig.
Yeah, it's a little easier to rig
and all that.
But I mean, our 35s were not small. They were rigged out.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting because Arri really puts a line in the sand with that EVF LCD option. The LCD screen I hate, but the touch interface and everything is really smooth.
Mm-hmm.
I like the EVF sort of hybrid concept, though, and I think that's a smart concession. There is a lot of chatter among filmmakers, and even Jose, if he's still here. Jose mounts his 7-inch screen off to the side instead of straight up on top, which straight up on top for center of gravity makes the most sense. But a lot of operators like to operate like that's something actually Blackmagic did really well initially, was they had a big fold-out screen. But the thing that happened all the time was people busted those things off the camera. So it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Let's see. You don't want to be in touch screen with all the gack you got to put on the side. Sometimes hard buttons was the right call. Yeah, I hear you. If you're rigging it out, which is why I say XL makes total sense to me, because you're rigging out an XL.
Ultra 7 from Small HD, the new Ultra 7.
What about it?
Their new 7-inch monitor.
No, I didn't see it.
It's really new. I did get to look at it in person, and it's really good. Buttons on the front. Probably the coolest sun hood I've ever seen that also protects the screen by folding down. Yeah, you'll have to Google search it. They're not even shipping yet.
He's Phil Holland on everything, Timothy.
Yeah, YouTube/PHFX. I was in early on YouTube. I think the year after.
PHFX.com as well for his film LUTs too. Film color.
Film color is happening soon.
Oh, we got the update again, huh?
It's going to happen. I have been postponing it, but I've had enough positive feedback now, and I'm refining a few things. I'm actually incredibly proud of what's coming.
I have actually played more with your LUTs in the last 6 weeks than I have probably the last year, because of the way that I'm doing the node structure in Resolve now. Everything looks better. Everything looks like, to me, it's like it's supposed to. And and by putting your LUTs in now, I feel some of them more. You know, I always had a few favorites that I liked, but like some of them now, they really speak to me, and it's like interesting.
That's cool. And I appreciate that. And one of the things I have the hardest time with, Scott, I have LUTs that are very bold looks, but a lot of my LUTs are not very bold. They're more to tune colors certain ways.
Yep.
Initially very much inspired by motion picture film, but also some interesting other stuff that leads to very pleasing color complementary schemes in natural life. There's a great deal that goes into my LUTs that I really don't like fully telling people about, but like, I mean, I've been working on R4 for like a couple years now. Like, I'm not.
And R3 was worked on for a couple of years.
Yeah. No, and R3 was like 4 years of actual work. That was huge. I had time to put on that. Two of the years on R3, I was putting so much active development in. And then the other 2 years, there was so much research and cross-testing between studios and companies. And honestly, that's what led to the LUTs coming into the Red cameras, was people responded so well with them around the world. And I'm very thankful for that. It's such a tremendous opportunity to do stuff like that. But this release, there's some nice stuff. Some of the stuff I've been using, but in making little teeny tweaks to kind of get it even better. But like my goal with film color, not to turn this into a sales thing, but like my goal with film color is to provide creative stuff, technical stuff, but more or less a full potential transportable grading solution. Meaning, if I made this as an OFX plugin, you would only be able to use it in OFX software. By keeping things in LUTs and really testing them, you can use them in camera. You can use them in every software, and it's
very
transportable.
portable, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had editors call me and say like, "Oh, this is so smart the way this was done," and I'm like, I wasn't expecting to get a call from an editor. Like, yeah.
One of these days, I'm going to build up the courage to bring on a bunch of colorists all at the same time on here and have them almost battle to the death of what is the correct way to do color. I know there's 100 different ways, and none of them are really wrong, but like I went back when you released Film Color 3 and you were on for like 3 hours and you were walking through how you do it. And I had been using that for a long time, and switching to this new method, it changes the color. It really
and I've made it
brought out
clearer this time around. It's even more simplified now, which I think is going to be fun for people. I think the wonderful thing about the sphere of colorists in the world, you know, whether they're hired guns working at Company 3 or a lot of the more prominent YouTube personalities that have risen, I really enjoy hearing their insights and their takes on stuff. And I'm more curious often about what they don't talk about, which is interesting. But I also wouldn't suspect most colorists to even divulge certain things. But the real thing is, I still tend to people who use a variety of different workflows. So I'm not just always concerned about DaVinci Resolve, even though that's my most used grading software. I'm concerned about Baselight. Heck, I'm still hearing people using Vegas, which
that keeps coming up in all these jokes, and they're like serious. I'm like, whoa, people still use Vegas?
Dude, it's shocking to me. Oh, the sun has decided to come out. It's been cloudy all day today, and now I'm about to explode. Right. I'm going to turn into Oppenheimer.
Right. Have you? Do you know Darren Moisten on YouTube?
The name sounds familiar. I have to look him up.
TYN. If you have a chance, look him up and his node structure that he talks about, and try it, and see what you think, because it's not
parallel nodes or.
Oh well, yeah. He sets it up so that he could color grade, so it's very nicely detailed. But he's putting everything into DaVinci Wide Gamut inside everywhere, and then when he does LUTs, he pops them out as a couple of nodes that you compound nodes. He puts them in there, and then he converts those LUTs into what's the GoPro Cineform? Because most of those LUTs, he says, are designed for Cineform.
The ones that he's making.
No, he's talking about the film LUTs that are out there, all the Kodaks, all these others.
Actually, I might have probably the best insight on this, because I physically reached out to Blackmagic Design, because I had to get sanctioned to recreate the film LUTs, the film looks. If you remember in Film Color R3, there are native DaVinci Resolve LUTs in there, and they allowed me to do that. And I reached out to them, and I am old school enough to know that those LUTs were designed for a Rec 709 input.
Right.
In Cineon log.
Cineon, that's the one. Cineon, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the truth there. And more interestingly, there's another layer to that. There are more LUTs than what comes with Resolve from way back in the day. And if for anyone who had Fusion and various other things, even someone got in trouble for actually just sending those LUTs out in one of his LUT packs. They just go, he's a colorist I respect, so I won't out him here now. But like, he figured out, something that he did was wrong. But the long and the short of it is, those were Cineon for legal, not full range. So if you look at mine will actually give you a proper black level. It was really interesting being interactive with Blackmagic Design. And one of the things was like, these were made so long ago, no one knows what they are. And then I did a full deconstruct on them And honestly, they should be made to a higher level of precision because they actually still can evoke artifacts, but most people would never see them. But I see how people sometimes are grading with them, and it's just like, okay, just be careful with what you're doing there, you know. But
Cineon was the format that was. I remembered it wrong, but he puts it
Cineon
in there.
Mod is how all of our film scanners scan film,
right?
And still,
then you use the key on the LUT to adjust how strong it is.
Yeah, you can back that out, and some people like separating the color and the luminance because you can make your own tone curve, and you're getting into some of the hairy things because some of these LUTs were designed in such a way that the colorimetry, subtracting the luminance at all, you're kind of changing how it works anyways. Not to get too technical, but the simple thing to do is if you toggle a LUT between a color blend mode and not, you'll see some of those impacts on the image. And yeah, you know, I think there was a moment in time where people were very anti-LUT, and that seems to have gone away. But the thing that you need to know is, did the person who created your LUTs make them for a specific color and gamma?
Did they know what they were making them for, right?
And did they vet them? And I mean, like, I get sent LUTs fairly often that were used on stuff, usually about like a dozen times a year. Like, hey, my highlights are like crazy, or my LUT's clipping like so bad. And it's like, I didn't make the LUT. Like, I don't know what you want me to. Are you trying to get me to fix things? Because I can do that, and I won't do that for free, unless, you know, I know that person incredibly well and they've bought me enough of, you know, alcohol or other things. No, they don't need to get rid of the 15 monitor port. It drives him insane. It's in a weird spot, and they probably needed to make it as an accessory that's removable.
Yeah, it's weird, and the conversion box is a little larger than it should be because it screws with stuff.
Yeah. The RMI is an interesting concept. My biggest wishes initially, I told Jared, I don't mind mentioning it now, I wanted that connector to be a Kevlar braided cable that was just bulletproof. Like, I don't want to pinch it and worry about it kind of thing.
Right.
But, you know, that's one thing. And connecting via proper LEMO interface would have been nice, but they're using a different protocol. And this way they have a very transportable cable that's kind of easy to deal with. I'm fine with that.
It's interesting why they chose to use a USB-C connector, but not the standard.
Because everything does now. I much like when the first MacBooks came out and they went all USB-C, and like the industry for 2 or 3 years bitched about it. Right. And now everything's USB-C and everyone's
I'm fine with that, but you can't use a USB-C cable.
It's not a USB-C protocol. It's not even
exactly. That's what. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So it's not that interchangeable. There's still going to be some proprietariness in terms of the monitor and control scheme. That's just how that's going to work. And I will say, the other option, instead of a 15 millimeter rod mount, everything from there is either ball related or some proprietary connector that doesn't work with anything. So I think 15 millimeter is a really smart clamp. And I bought 2 of their most rigid arms that came for the 7-inch monitors. I am one of those people that likes to lock that thing down. That solved all of my criticisms with that. And I can put that monitor anywhere.
Did you try the
15 millimeter rod? See, Jose's upset about it. I know Jose. He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
He's upset about it because he quite literally always rigs his monitor to the left of the camera. That's it. I sometimes move my monitor everywhere, and I can even put it on a 15 millimeter rod, which is kind of wild. Like, I can have it next to a lens, and a lot of people don't do that, but it's kind of a cool place to put an AC monitor. Yeah. So
did you try the Mid 49 Speedball, which is the ball monitor mount?
I have seen it. I don't have one here, but I think that's smart. I still think
it's actually the coolest. I keep saying, okay, it's a little big for some applications, but I keep not taking it off. I keep using it because it just you could move that sucker around wherever I'm at.
That ball design is popular for a reason, but the sticky widget with ball designs for some monitors is your monitor will not be level with your camera. That's an interesting thing. Some people have a big anal thing about that. I'm okay with it because I like, if you have the camera up high, I don't mind tilting it a special way. It's a damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. What would be sexy, and this is just my opinion, design the monitor with an RMI that has two interfaces that come with the package, ball or 15 mil rod, so you can decide which you want on there, and then also have the monitor interface appropriately. So you have a clamp that goes on your monitor that it can be positionable. That is the utopia solution. But I think that requires more.
I don't know why they wouldn't just do a removable type of connector on the RMI.
It is removable now. In terms of what happens on the monitor, the RMI just has that fixed 15 millimeter rod. And if you bought the hardware upgrade kit for the more rigid arm that removes the plastic sleeve, you can take the bloody thing off. It's not a great thing to do, but it's like, okay. And we'll see. Maybe Red has some solutions coming in the future for that we don't know about. Jared's vocally said he wants that to be designed differently.
He despises it.
I think it's equal parts of genius and frustration. And that's where I am, because I come from DSM-2, where like we didn't have cables, and then to even use cables, you had to attach adapters that added more weight to the system. But it was one of those things that for people that enjoyed the cableless world, which the fastest camera setup you can get basically for a Sony camera.
It was awesome, but people hated the repair cost.
Yeah, well, that
$850.
I mean, I don't think anybody on Earth would have known how bad people tortured those LCD screens. I mean,
that was the thing.
50-pound camera rigs from that monitor, and I'm going, that's not gonna last that way, buddy. Like that.
Nope.
Like it can hold some weight, but you shouldn't be carrying your camera with that.
And I think he said at one point that it was hundreds of thousands of dollars they spent on development of that cable, the design to get it in there.
Yeah, none of mine broke. I was very lucky, but I'm also not doing like insane things, and I never beat it like a rental kind of thing.
I've not broken mine ever, and I do. I know you're not. People put them flat and then they pack them in their bag. I always have some type of fat foam that I slip in between, so it can't pop off.
Nice. I think the sad thing we lost, and I understand again why people went away from it, is Red used to be very reliant on NATO rails, and they went for more rigid bolt-on handles. And it's one of those things. I think they were solving user error. A lot of people would put a NATO rail handle on it and would slide right off, and the camera would be on the ground.
Or they would buy everything expensive except get the small rig NATO rail, and it would snap on them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't things.
Right.
I like a good bolt-on handle. It feels sturdy as heck. I don't always do this, but I sometimes just rock a side handle just to keep the top of the camera low profile. Some of my cases that I travel with my gear, I need to always have them low profile. So sometimes it's just putting a handle on the side, which is nice.
Sculptor Rama, there is a Kessler Cine shooter and a Kessler Second Shooter Facebook group. You can join. It's not a forum. It's a Facebook group. And then also, quick point for anybody, on January 31st, I believe that's a Wednesday, I will be doing a live stream on here demoing how to use Chaos completely, all across the board. Everything. It'll be a live stream, interactive. People can ask questions as we go, and it's going to be fun. And I might be showing some Unreal things. I might.
I know Eric watches this, and I've known Eric for a long time. But I found a BTS image from a shoot I did very literally 12 years ago with my OG Cine slider, and I forgot that me and my assistant backpacked into this waterfall to get these very subtle camera movements with this kit. And this is before Cineshooter or anything like this. It was back when CineSlider just had basic motion control. But man, it's so crazy when I look at these pictures where we're like, we have the camera on a slider with the leveling feet like next to water, like right on water. And it was amazing. We were able to get all of our setups and get out before the day was over, because you couldn't hike out of that place at night, and it was just madness. Just madness.
That was actually one of my favorite things about Cineshooter, because when I would go to Yosemite has, in the springtime, there are creeks flowing everywhere. And so I would take Cineshooter and use those outrigger feet, and I would get it into the water. Whereas sitting off across the waters, you can flow right into the water with a nice motion. I loved it.
One of my favorite back and forths I used to have with the now late Cameron Michael was every so often we would chew the fat on like weird ways of using these sliders. And he was more into the dolly more than the Cine slider. I was more into the enclosed thing for highly portable work, but when you needed certain lengths, carrying a 5-foot long thing versus something you can assemble into a 5 or 20-foot long thing.
Right.
But we would always like send each other pictures of setups, and like I would have like one leg on a precariously weird rock, and it's just where it's got to go, you know.
It's funny because it's a little bit adjustable, and right, I'd have stuff sticking everywhere.
I am doing the color. I am indeed. In fact, I'm very fortunate. I more or less operate like a small production company, and there might be some expansion news here. I closed up an area in one part of the valley out here, and might be setting something up here too. You're damn right I do. I used to color $100 billion blockbusters. I hope they look okay. Yeah.
So you're buying a helicopter, Phil? Is that what it is? You're just gonna?
No, I'm not quite there yet. And I think a helicopter's insane. I know the actual like cost to actually maintain those, and
yeah, so you got $3 million up front, plus your
what is it? Cinetel is still a scanner, and so is the Blackmagic scanner.
Yeah,
they scan Cineon.
Yep.
Cineon is a older log.
Mighty Jags.
Hey, Mighty Jags. Oh, that's yeah, I know this. Yeah, Cineon's the older log curve, and the reason we had to go to things like log 3G10 or even log C4 is these cameras have more dynamic range, and Cineon works great for scanning film that's been exposed to negative, whereas we're now essentially capturing on an entirely different medium with quite a bit more dynamic range in a couple areas. Jose, it's a bad design. Jose on this island, I love it.
Jose never has an opinion. I don't know. The guy just, he's good with everything.
Ooh, thoughts on Apple Pro Vision Pro?
Ooh, yeah.
For those of us shooters. Man, I got a lot of thoughts on that. What can I say? I've been involved with 3D and spatial imaging now for the last 4 iterations of it coming into our industry. And I think with Apple supporting it to this degree, things like other headsets now several generations down the line, we're in a really nice place for things. And I think what we're going to see now is the reality of what a computer and mixed reality headset can provide you. And this is the early days, and it's exciting. I like getting in on tech when it's early because you got the most to lose and you got the most to gain. But Apple has got a vision for this thing, for the lack of, sorry for the pun there, but I'm curious where this version goes. I'm curious where Gen 2 and 3 goes.
2 is where I'm interested in, because the price has got to be half, but it's got to be as good or better as with color fidelity.
Well, it's an interesting thing. If you look at a smartphone today, which is like $1,500 for a premium phone, and you look at the price of a MacBook, which the Vision Pro is essentially something like that.
Yep,
that's where the price is right now.
Well,
and I think the hard entry point for many people who have never experienced anything like this is the first question you need to ask is, why do you need it, or why do you want it? And I think until there's those things that make people go to it, it will be a hard sell. But for those that get the best experience off of it initially, it's mind-boggling. It's one of those things.
I have a want for it. My want is personal. It's an EVF. On production set, you can hand it to producers and they get all the monitors and they can lay them out all they want. And if the fidelity is there for the color, then they can see what they want to see.
I don't think I've ever told you this, Scott, but I told Jared about this. Years back, I used a visor to try monitoring my footage in the helicopter. I don't know if you know, but like in the helicopter, everything's vibrating. Like
I know, yeah.
So getting critical focus is hard, and the best thing I could do was like secure a monitor to my head. So a visor made a lot of sense. And one of the shocking discoveries was that visor was okay, but I couldn't see the outside world suddenly. And the way I work is not just living in the EVF, and it's much how I was shooting with Monster with the hybrid EVF LCD, where sometimes I'm here, and then sometimes I'm here looking at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to rely on that, and I can handle it. I don't get motion sickness. I know some people who have dabbled with that, and they're like, I can't use the headset for more than 10 minutes or I'm vomiting. And I'm like, I'm not that. It's so crazy when you pan the camera around in the air and there's nothing, there's no sensation of movement. It's so bizarre. But
the thing I think can win here is their augmented space. Mm-hmm. You can see through. So now you'd be able to see everything around you, but you can place monitors literally everywhere you want, and they're stuck.
From my experience is it's exactly how you describe, and I think their ingenuity on hand gestures is going to be pretty powerful here. And it's early days. They've been working on this thing for years, and they've decided to push the baby out to see what happens. And I'm curious. I'm already hearing some fascinating reviews and feedback, even people who have not done their public reviews yet.
Yeah.
Some people we know very well on the internet. So I don't know. I think
I've got a lot of hope for it because I feel like Apple can make it happen at a level necessary for critical visual.
I think it's another platform for content creation. Shooting content for that in a variety of ways is interesting. And there's questions you need to ask yourself there. Yeah.
There's Jose. He's all mad about 15 millimeters.
Have you ever talked to somebody who only likes one type of spaghetti, like one type of pasta? Jose might be that guy. I love him.
It's not spaghetti though, right? Because does anybody really like spaghetti over all the other pastas?
Well, it doesn't need to be replaced if you don't want the plastic sleeve.
I
think the new mount is better and a worthy upgrade.
I have not put it back on the 15 millimeter rod. I feel like I'm agreeing with Jose, and I don't want to say that. Don't get a big head, Jose. I don't like it.
I agree that there should be more flexibility in what it should do. I'm really not mad at the concept of a 15 millimeter mount. I am mad at the concept of using the plastic sleeve because this solution is way better that they just came out with.
Yeah, I mean, I did not know because I had not had the 7-inch touch monitor on DSMC3 until I got Komodo X. So I had not been paying attention to people who were complaining about that mount. And mine literally broke in like the first 2 days. And I was like, what's up with this?
Cable is stuck inside there?
Well, it's that little plastic twist thing. So it can get off, and it's hard to pull in and out. And so you end up having to pull pretty hard.
That's a problem I did not have. I had some criticisms with the plastic sleeve itself, but not the interface with the cable.
Yeah, my plastic sleeve, I mean, those screws ground into my 15 millimeter. Yeah. So I have scratches through my 15 millimeter. It's bad.
If I was going to design something around that kind of concept again, I would probably make a light bayonet connector, maybe proprietary. But, I mean, that's another more expensive cable. That's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a tough one because we can't rely on SDI because it doesn't deliver data and power. And HDMI doesn't do it either. So, like, I want a one cable or no cable solution always.
If you could design an
EVF for Red DSMC3, how would you do it? Grazie mille. two directions. Three maybe. I like the DSMC2 EVF for its size. It was very small and compact.
Yep.
But it lacked features that people wanted. And we could get more shortcut keys even on a newer design. Then you have to ask if you want a fold-out LCD design as well. No matter what, for me, it's about the optics first and the screen quality. The OLED EVF was such a huge upgrade, kind of industry-wide at the time, versus the old LCD EVFs. But with that gain, we lost something because I heard some people enjoyed using the LCDs because they could see into the shadows more, which I could understand that mindset. But if you use exposure tools, not a big deal. I prefer a more accurate representation of color. So OLED of some sort, don't care how, pretty nice viewfinder, optic, high quality. If they're going to redesign it or even use the old one, I'm fine. I think they're going to redesign it if they're going to build a new one, though. And it looks like they're coming out with some solutions. And I'm certain some of that stuff's knocking on the door right now.
I'm guessing, like Friday, people might want to tune into a live stream. That's just what I'm guessing.
I'm excited.
Live stream.
I mean, here's my other thing. I mean, for when I shoot scripted work, and even outdoors, even if I'm doing work outdoors where my camera's just with me, the EVF allows me to block out all distractions and even glare. And I love the tandem working of a top 7-inch and an EVF. I think that was great, or even a 5-inch, I'd say. Something I can pull critical focus on, but make discerning composition and exposure choices on. And strangely, one of the things I noticed with at least one filmmaker I know, when they started working with an EVF, they started noticing that they were overexposing a lot. And it was their specific methods of exposing. I'm not saying this is everybody, but because they saw the world only through an LCD, how they were doing it was different. By like a stop. They were overexposing like a stop, which isn't the biggest deal, especially in digital. But like, he was like, I'm always pulling my shots down. And I'm like, wonder why. And then when he got an EVF, he's like, I'm hitting it on the head every time. And that allows you that focus.
I never loved EVFs. I didn't like the way that they worked with my brain until Mark Toya was telling me about how he pops in his earbuds and he goes out there with his EVF and he's locked out from the world and he's got whatever he wants for his creativity. And I was blown away and I tried it and I was like, oh my God, this is like life changing. And all of a sudden I liked EVFs.
To answer that quick question, those aerials, yes. I have delivered aerials to up to 16K resolution. And to date, in terms of array footage, I've delivered up to 32K footage, which is a whole nightmare to deal with. But is the new solution on red?
On red.
What is the new solution?
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're referring to, Brian. I think you're talking. I don't know. Godzilla -1
Yeah, there's a black and white. I'm big on having that. I think that's a brilliant throwback to the original Godzillas. I used to love those films in black and white. They used to do marathons on Channel 5 out here in Southern California on Thanksgiving. The week of Thanksgiving, every year, they would air all of those. And one of my earliest jobs was working at a video store. And was it Diamond or Ingram or whoever the distributor was who got us our VHS tapes, gifted the store owner a box set of all the Godzilla films. And they are currently the only VHSs I held on to. I can't get rid of that box set. Because it was such a nice thing from a nice guy.
Ports with the cyber functional. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I hear you.
Those ports are functional, but they're not monitoring ports.
Right, they're not RMI.
Yeah. Why people claim independent? So the EVF on the DXL, which is an expensive EVF, if I remember right, is about $15,000 a pop. Is made by a company with Panavision things in it. The reason why the screen was so good was it has SDR and HDR ramifications, lots of options on the EVF, but it's a big pig of a thing. Like, it's longer than Raptor. in about as wide, like a little bit less wide. And I think that's goofy. I don't think Red can go that route and make just something massive. That's where I'm saying, like, if I was going to design one, keep it small, because one of the biggest if you take yourself out of the equation and just look at the trends, cameras getting smaller has been an increasing trend. So the second you're making something bigger, especially on that front, you need to find a damn good reason for it. So
I like an EVF where the screen to my eyeball, to my pupil, it looks like a large screen with the resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't be small.
I'm hoping with the new one they'll revisit the screen. I'm very curious about the shape of the thing, and actually more than anything, because of how the DSMC2 one literally went to a swivel mount to the side of the camera. What's that going to look like on Raptor?
There was no sexier design than the DSMC2 one.
But there was never an offset bracket, and people always wanted the thing higher, so you had to use a cable and all that, and which is fine.
It was designed for this.
Tight to the body, where like typically I'm shooting either a little bit taller than I am, and I'll be able to get to the camera, or lower, in which case I can get to the camera. But I don't need the EVF to track me like it would on a Fisher dolly. I mean, I used to use those old eyepieces, and that's a really nice, elegant solution. And I don't know many people who'd use those nowadays outside of very high-end scripted stuff.
Komodo and my Raptor Komodo X is coming on Monday. Nice.
Turn the light on here.
Wowie, wow. Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have a 1 or 2 scrim on your window that you could just pull down.
I wasn't expecting. I would have actually put the. You're actually not wrong. I actually use a full silk that I wedge in this door with screwdrivers, because I don't have blinds on this door. Yeah.
Yep, gives 3 points of contact. It does get 3 points of contact, as long as it's a comfortable eye cap. Because man, there's some crappy ones out there.
Immersive is an interesting way of putting it, and it's funny when I shoot in the helicopter. There's places I sometimes film where I very literally never leave the monitor. Often I'm looking around and stuff, but there are places where for 3 hours, this is my world. And the thing that's always shocking to me is when we're done and we're taxiing back to landing, wherever we took off from, whatever airfield or whatever, those first moments when I get out of the helicopter, it's like, wow, I was incredibly focused in there. Like no other world.
Where am I? What? Why is it so bright? He got his answer. Okay.
Oh,
the
gotcha.
Zacuto solution to what is included in the EVF was something I was never a fan of yet, but
I'm a fan of Zacuto making that solution. I'm not terribly in love with that solution.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, it's one of the more affordable options on the market that produces something pretty good.
Yep.
And it connects to SDI or whatever. So.
Yep. I thought Panavision was rental only. Panavision is rental only.
Yeah. I still sometimes shoot with Panavision equipment. Very rarely. But...
improve the refresh rate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We'll probably go up to 60 hertz on the new one with the way the monitoring pipe works. Actually, it depends. I don't know what the RMI. I'm just thinking about how the SDI works, but I didn't consider the RMI. The RMI might have some limitations or not. Don't know. They might have a smooth scan option. Who knows?
That'd be so
no,
bad.
Some people like that for the EVF, even though you're not capturing that way, just to see. So, like, one of the reasons people will use a full scan option is if you are tracking the subject's motion, and if you're getting this sort of direct 24p feed, you might not be tracking it as well as you could be. But that's minimal issue for me.
I 100% do 24p on the feeds. I don't want to see extra frames in there.
This is actually going to be a huge monitor year for people doing post too. There's a lot of great new technologies while we're on refresh rate stuff. The new OLEDs and QD OLEDs are massively good.
Are they going to release a 5-inch DSMC3 monitor?
Jared said he was going to, and I was making such a point of it during the original Komodo launch that we needed something in that scale. And Komodo X and Raptor, especially for travel work, they beg for it. I think 7" is really good for pulling focus and doing all the things. But if you want to be smaller, I think that's a good way to go. I am a little surprised that we don't have a way to interface better with smartphones directly and with less latency. I think that's still the problem we face. So probably for a while.
Yeah. We will see a 5" at some point.
Yeah.
Not necessarily super soon, but definitely soon. Must be the only one on the planet that loves the 7" over the 5".
I think generally I would use a 7" more days of the week. The old DSMC2 one didn't have a swivel. I hope whatever they do maybe has a swivel, but also can fold flat to the top of the camera.
Well,
so
it needs to be a full, at least 1080p monitor too. It can't be a 720 like that.
No, yeah.
God, I think it was horrible. I think the EVF will unlock different features like eye tracking. I don't think there's going to be any eye tracking or focusing options.
I think eye tracking in motion picture cameras is like not a thing right now. Not a thing maybe for a long time. Autofocus will be. Do I think it has an IP rating? Maybe.
I don't know.
Depends on if they put grommets or in that sort of thing.
It'll probably have as much of an IP rating as like a Komodo or Komodo X, which is not.
Yeah.
What are those? Those are like 55, aren't they? Or no, not even that.
They're not 68, if I remember.
They're not. They're not drench.
Yeah, none of these. I don't think
there's splash either.
You know, it's kind of funny. I was thinking about the weather sealing on the mirrorless cameras even, and most of that comes down to the gasket that they put across the lens mount. Yep. But I don't think I'd let any of those cameras get wet, like seriously wet. In a light rain, you're fine. I've shot with both my Sonys and Canons in light rain. Red I've had plenty of times in light rain, and much to my chagrin, and even doing our best to cover it. But when you have wind and rain, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't see an IP rating on the Reds.
Man, I remember I was doing some time-lapse work and live-action filming up in San Francisco years back, and that camera got to experience a lot of different weather. And that was rough.
And I see it too, like from a manufacturer standpoint. If they rate it for IP rating, then they have to guarantee it basically that if you do this, it's not going to be a problem. What they rate it for, which is, I don't see an IP rating at all, but what you can get away with are two different things.
I also think for how the cameras generate heat and stuff, by trying to go to the 9s with that type of thing, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot. You would be gaining the weather resilience, but like you'd be adding cost, size, weight, and very real heat issues.
I mean, like Komodo and Komodo X, they have that heat tunnel. That's all sealed off. So I'm not sure that the heat would really cost them.
Yeah. Nah, I think you still don't want to flood that thing with water, though.
Oh, I'm not doing it. By golly, I'm so bad about putting plastic over my
affordable LED
wall options. That would be nice, Carlos.
I think the interesting thing is we're getting bigger TVs initially. I think affordable LED walls are going to happen, but in their current design iteration, not just yet. What I was shocked to see, so I don't know for anyone who's tracking this as aggressively as I am, but there is a 16K television now, and Sony has a 12K television.
I haven't seen that.
So yeah, you'd have to have your head like square in the pavement to be tracking this one. But BOE demonstrated a 16-inch. I think it was a 120-inch TV. 16K, 120-inch.
But still, I mean, to see 16K, you would literally be a foot from it.
Not necessarily. So if you look at the optimal viewing distances and the closest ones, you'd see advantages to that 16K resolution. I've made new viewing tools and stuff to try to explain this to people, but there's people who have strong opinions about, HD, 4K, 8K, whatever. It's physics. We've done enough studies that we know it's physics. We know people can see the difference if the content is appropriate for it. But we also need an industry that supports it. And right now, globally, I've finished more 8K content than is delivered in America by a mile. Because 8K streaming exists elsewhere.
Yeah, Japan's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, and it's going to grow. It's going to be. I don't know if it's going to happen when H.266 hits the market or whatever, but I think one of the streaming companies is going to pull the trigger on 8K fairly soon.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Danny. At my age, too. Love the buttons on the 5-inch toggle. My eyes love the 7-inch monitor much more because I'm getting old. Yep, Carlos, it's a thing. Jose, you're about to experience that, too.
The EVF would be good. If you have vision issues, the EVF should have a corrective optic to deal with
yes,
that.
A good EVF would have a corrective optic, yes. Yeah. Which definitely fixes that. But, I mean, still, there is a point where if the screen is relatively too small, you're not going to be able to resolve it.
So, Jose, I can talk about it now that it's been announced, but the Ultra 7 from Small HD I got to look at in person, hands-on. It's awesome. Like, really good. And there's been some coverage on, like, News Shooter and stuff like that, but I'm going to tell everyone right now the best feature on that monitor for me. And no one's talking about this. It is a 6G SDI, which means it takes a 4K signal that when you punch into 100%, so it's a 1080p screen, but if you're looking for critical focus, instead of doing the faux magnification on the Small HD zoom, they have a way of punching in pixel to pixel, and then you can zoom further. So I'm pretty excited and jazzed about that. The buttons are smart. The thing's built like a freaking tank. And that sunshade it's a work of art. Like it's what these things should have been doing for a while, but I think it took them a while to figure out all the pieces to the equation.
This is OLED? Is it?
Small HD Ultra 7.
Yeah.
Should be on the site now.
Yeah, it's on there. $29.99. It's got Ethernet. Interesting.
Same price. Still, you can do camera control through it, which I think is interesting. But for me, the way I use 7-inch monitors, I have 5 in my helicopter kit, and I have 2 for my on-set kit. So I'll probably get 2 to start, and then cycle out my old 7s at some point.
That's a QD LED, okay.
Yeah.
LCD. Well, they got like every connector on the bottom. That thing is full.
Well, the cool thing is they have these battery plates for the back too. So like making this thing into a director's monitor is actually the easiest thing ever. You just put the handles on and then the V or G mount on the back and you're done. And they're making a Bolt 6 compatible one just like they did before. But this one's going to be a much more svelte looking thing. Yeah.
Did you touch on the IP56 rating of it? No, we just talked about it. There we go. Yeah. Sony says not guaranteed to be 100% dust and moisture proof for every lens. Yeah, well. That's how you avoid having to pay for things. Needs to release an Apple TV at least 8K.
Nah, for mass consumer market, 4K. I'm very happy they have a 4K box. I think the world is still moving towards mass 4K adoption on the higher end of things. So,
what I would like now is a relatively affordable 4K projector. That is my. I don't want the TV because I have a 155-inch screen. I don't want to go down in size. What am I? What am I? Come on.
Well, I think there might be an affordable 150-inch 4K TV in your future then.
Yeah, I've seen those. They're kind of hilarious.
Down in price.
Yeah, they're getting really cheap. I mean, 85-inch TVs you can get for under $1,000.
My next TV, I don't know when I'm going to upgrade, and I'm aesthetically. My TV in my living room is 8K and has been for many years. And it'll probably remain that way. And the best I can say is I'm probably mine's 75 inches. Or no, mine's 70 inches. My next TV is going to probably be in the 86 to 90 something range.
I don't. Yeah. This sounds so first world. I don't see me buying a TV to watch primary that's less than 100 inches. I mean, once you consume on large, it is really hard to go down. It's
For me, it's an optimal viewing distance, and I have my living room designed to a certain extent where even the couch is a little bit off the wall and the TV is a little off the wall, so I have that.
So you get that perfect.
Yeah. Do you think the new EVF will have a wireless option so you could use a part of the body as a remote FPV through? I feel like Red Control does that. I feel like that would be a lot to punch into a new EVF design and add some additional cost.
Especially if it's to be small.
And what do? You attach it like an eye patch? Like what? I mean, it would be a cool idea to have it wireless, but really what I would want it to do is to attach snugly to the camera and also be extendable if you need to put an arm on it to get it higher up or lower.
Let's see.
That would be good.
Sunshine
I think
was
Wooden
impressive.
Camera made the best one of those way back when. I still have that thing somewhere.
Back before Y2K was adverse to the internet, I was told there are only 158 people in the world who we will rent to. The internet makes...
It's actually funny, Danny. So Panavision, I've had a long-time relationship with. They have 750 clients globally. That is the number. I was told that under no NDA or anything, so I don't mind saying that. Now, those 750 clients may bring them multiple jobs per year, though. And that's the thing. So, and they really cater to their sort of pool. They like getting new clients. They hate losing clients, but they generally float in that sort of range. And you know what? Good for them if they know that they have a thing they have to cater to. I think from a business standpoint, if you know your audience and can continue to cater to their needs, they're going to do fine.
Yeah, I mean, Jose, it's life. I mean, at some point, 5 inches is just not going to do it for you. You know, you're going.
Rex's yawn timed with that was so good, dude. That was so funny. You're gonna watch this in playback and watch his reaction to that joke.
He's my worst
He's not
critic.
even looking at you anymore. He was looking at you when you delivered it, though.
He's like, the eye roll.
Oh, it's been funny. You know, I have a great deal of fondness, even though I am an owner of equipment. You know, Keslo, Auto, Camtech, Panavision, Division, which is nearby me. I've known, well, Division wasn't even around until fairly recently. Who else? I don't know. Really, who I interact mostly with is Panavision, Camtech, and Keslo. And you have to have respect for what they're doing. Keslo is now an international operation. They absorbed Claremont, which coming up in LA, they were a really amazing rental house with Denny's unique perspective on the industry. He was really a very filmmaker-friendly rental house during the existence of Claremont Camera. And I would say Keslo is equally friendly in some ways. But Panavision is a giant, and the studios really still rely on them for turnkey solutions. And I've gotten a few friends' jobs there. I've had friends that I've met there. You know, it's just all these interesting ins and outs there. So this is 4K and works flawlessly.
Yeah,
what was that linked to?
I don't know.
You click on it.
I have links blocked, but I can't apparently block it on Facebook.
Yeah.
See, Panavision was like ASC Clubhouse back with, yeah.
The ASC is still pretty exclusive. It's another organization I've had over a 2-decade involvement with, and I'm on the MITC committee still. It's interesting becoming a member. It requires a lot, and genuinely, the vast majority of ASC members I've come up learning from, especially when I was much younger, took a lot of time to help me when I knew nothing. And now I still know nothing, but I'm very good at it. Oh, 4K projector. I think what interests me about the projectors, at least the recent ones, are the short throw ones. The new laser ones that I've been seeing are pretty okay.
Yeah, there's some. The short throws are nice if you need them, because it definitely solves a problem. But there are some weirdness things with lasers as well. I think the biggest problem with projectors is getting enough light to make it to be able to do HDR and be able to, because that's tough.
With a proper screen medium, meaning the material, and a good projector, it's still pretty good. But at this moment, emissive displays are far superior.
Yes, because you can pack. You're putting a small amount of light through a small area versus you have to put a large amount of light through a small area with a projector. Yeah. I mean, that's where the 3 CCD were really good.
Yep.
I'll look at it in a minute here, Brian. See, Phil, which file format you uploading to YouTube channel in 8K? What bitrate?
MPEG 2. No, I'm joking. It depends, but really nicely compressed H.265 or ProRes. YouTube has file size limitations.
Yeah, it was a 250 gig, I think.
They also changed their re-encoding stuff. When I uploaded my last dynamic range test, I noticed that it didn't handle the gradients as much as my last one.
Yeah,
I think they're trying to save some money somewhere.
They've downgraded everything. So there's actually even 1080p. Yeah, there's two levels of 1080p now, and one of them is really crappy.
It made me feel really stupid even trying to upload any sort of test material online.
It's a problem because there's really no place to put it. Because
I can put it live on my site. I have the bandwidth to probably front video files that way, and I can encode any way I want. But then I'm giving people good masters too, so it's a weird double-edged sword there.
Right. I think YouTube's problem is, you still got people that are literally uploading 10 hours of a thunderstorm, and they can't
hopefully in a
that.
Small codec.
Yeah, right.
I will say this while we're on the topic of encoding potentially. If I have one thing I'm hoping for in 2024 is DaVinci Resolve getting a paid-for license for ProRes encoding on Windows. I still deal with people who and even Linux, I don't know if you can on Linux now, but I really, really think we need to get that workflow thing figured out, because I deal with just too many clients that go back and forth, and it's like, how do we even do this?
It's literally Apple has something and Blackmagic has something, and neither one of them want to support each other.
I think Apple would be happy if someone was willing. That's why I want a paid license. Like, what's it worth to you? For me, I know what I'd pay for something like that, and they can accept licenses in their software now. So
you would think, but I think they don't want to give it up because then they lose the argument. They lose the.
It's 2024, man.
It's kind of childish, but this is a massive corporation. Childish is their middle name.
Blackmagic takes 10%, 20% of that cost. Apple gets the last 80%. You solve possibly the biggest post-production headache that I know of currently, at least for serious workflows. And
it is possible too that Apple's thinking, we sell more computers this way.
It's possible, yeah. And I encode on a Mac. I mean, I do everything proper for ProRes deliverables. But I mean, I work on so many different systems, so it doesn't really matter. I knew a guy who showed multiple IMAX features he never expected to get into the ASC. Yeah, ASC has definitely opened up. I mean, I remember when Chris Probst got in, he did the first part of the first season of Mindhunters, but his primary expertise and tremendous body of work were visually amazing music videos. So there's a lot of specialists. I think I'm so, I don't know. I know I've received one nomination because a DP friend of mine pulled me aside and said he wrote a letter for me. But you're not supposed to ask and things like that. And I'm so weird because I direct, I shoot, I do color, I do technology design, consulting. My years are weird compared to probably most DPs. So I don't know, but I don't know. I'd love to be in those ranks one day, but it's okay.
Do you use hedge canisters?
No, I don't.
I don't either. I use hedge for a lot of things, but I don't use hedge canisters.
I had them out recently because I'm testing a new solution, but I use. I'm assuming we're talking about
LTO
media and LTO and stuff. Yeah, I have such a. We can't get into it in this live stream because it's going to be 5 hours long. But
we can schedule another one, just not next week.
Yeah. No, we'll talk about workflow at some point.
Yeah, H.265 uploading to YouTube gets nasty artifacts. I've had a lot of problems. I've had a lot of problems with Resolve at H.265 lately. The last 3 versions of Resolve, 18.6 whatever, I have a lot of problems with H.265 encoding.
Interesting. That's something you should submit a support ticket to.
Yeah,
I think
don't.
genuinely the issues I've been seeing are YouTube related with uploading any codec. I fired off like 6 or 8 short clips and uploaded them. When I saw the hit to the quality on that dynamic range test, I was like, could I have done this better? And I could not have. And that just means that YouTube is no longer providing that quality level.
Yeah, YouTube doesn't. I mean, they got rid of. So I don't even know if they do 8K anymore.
They do. It takes time, much longer to render now. I've
yeah,
noticed
weeks. Yeah, or something.
If I was YouTube, on the slim chance that somebody there sees this, and the person I used to interact with there is no longer there, so I don't have a direct door to yell into. People who are paying for YouTube Premium or something similar should have access to higher quality codecs to provide their viewer base higher quality content. I understand that they don't care if Bobby getting his new car is the best quality in the world. But for people who are trying to build audiences and provide professional looking content, maybe let's find a way to solve that problem.
Yeah.
$15 a month, whatever it is, whatever the people need. And I think most creators would probably pay that. And I'm saying dangerous things here because here's money spilling out of our pants or whatever. But
right. On PC, and I have to use different plugins for ProRes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Chris wrote.
Chris, I've highly interacted with the ASC magazine. I mean, no, he did the legwork to become a member, and he earned it. He's a buddy of mine. I like him a lot.
Tech's supposed to get better and more efficient. The problem is YouTube keeps growing rapidly, and
suddenly there's like more billions of people online too.
And they want to upload everything in the hopes that they're going to be the next somebody.
We went really quick from like smartphones not being something everyone had to well over 1 billion and like 4 billion email accounts, and like in the span of 10 years, people online changed. It's the best I can say.
Paid gets you get 4K and 8K.
Yeah, you get 4K and 8K even if you're not signed in.
My thing is, I used to be able to actually see 8K on my machines, but Apple, for some reason, I can no longer see 8K.
Yeah, there's a thing.
Which is why I was asking if it was still out there, because I'm still uploading like all those Cook. The Cook lens test was all uploaded in 8K, and I'll be uploading the Lauer Rangers in 8K here this weekend.
I think Chrome and Edge are the only 2 browsers on Windows that support 8K. I could be wrong about that. I need to do another round, but for a while, people were like, I can't see 8K on your videos. And I'm like, what browser are you using? It was always a thing, and it was a well-known thing.
Jed says hello. I need to wrap this up because dinner is about ready. Do you have anything you wish to chat about? Or say?
Well, it's good to see you, Scott. I hope you have a good year. Okay. I'm hoping for a good one myself. I'm going to have some big stuff and big decisions coming up, and sounds like next week might be exciting.
Next week might be exciting, and we could definitely have you back on to have some other discussions. If you want to like laser focus into one direction, we can do that. That might be fun too.
That's impossible for me to do. With all of my personalities, it's just
try.
But pet the dog and the wife for me, and hope you're well. And I'll see you soon, man.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And so with that, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. I wasn't actually sure it was going to be a long live stream. Like literally after last week's, a cold front blew through, and I mean, I got hit with like sinus infection. I feel, for the most part, better today, but I wasn't 100%. And just having Phil on there just kind of brightened my day up just a little bit and pushed me through. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Next week, we will definitely have a special guest on with some it'll be worth it information and stuff and things. Do we know who the special guest is next week? We do know who the special guest is next week. Everyone is has seen the before. I'm probably not supposed to say anything. I just know that we'll have a special guest. So yeah. So so everyone have a fantastic weekend. Hope you do something fun and enjoyable, and eat something fun and enjoyable. And we'll see you next week here. And as always, as I like to leave it, don't let your passions center around your life. Let your life center around your passions. Bye, everyone.